How do we best navigate disagreements when two people just cannot agree on something? How do we navigate those?
Well, it depends obviously on the argument and what it's about and the context that's around it. If you just want to navigate, let's say, just a typical disagreement, it's best to put a frame around it for you to know where you're going. Oftentimes, people get into an argument and they don't know where they're going. All they know is the other person's wrong and I need to tell them that they're wrong. And they don't have any other plan other than that. Well, when that happens, it's it's like putting your pencil down on a piece of paper and then just continuing to draw and doodle. Where is it going to end? I don't know. I just started it. I just started it. That's all I cared about. I got it out. I said what I wanted to say, but where do you go with it? You need to have a frame, an endpoint. Oftentimes, I find the best way to do that is to tell the other person how I want the conversation to end before I start it. So if it's something contentious, I can either just start saying something contentious, or I address it with something as simple as, like, I know that at the end of this, we're going to walk away with X, Y, and Z. We're still going to be good friends. I want you to know I care about you. At the end of this conversation, we're still going to love each other and respect each other. You see how you're already like forecasting how the end of the conversation is going to go. But I need to talk to you about something that's very, very important to me. So you're going ahead and you're removing any fear that this is going to lead to the loss of love or connection or a friendship, because that often happens in an argument. You get this anxiety of, where is this going? Oh no, they're not going to love me anymore. They're not going to want to be my friend. They're not going to, and that makes everything worse. When you can put a frame around the conversation and let them know at the outset how you want it to end, now you know the playing field. Like now you know the picture. Now you know where the boundaries are in the conversation, and that's always going to go much better for you.
And that also tends to make people feel less attacked, because when you just go at them with the issue, what happens is that they lash out back at you, and then next thing you know, it's not a productive argument at all.
Right. Or how many times have we heard or thought of, where is this going? Okay, what are you asking of me? What do you want me to do? So you have this feeling of like, you're just complaining at me. What are we doing here? So I just need to know, are you just trying to vent to me? Because maybe that needs to be the frame. Hey, look, I need to vent to you. I don't want you to solve anything. I have an issue at work. I'm not asking for anything to be fixed. Can I just tell you that? That's a frame. That's a border. Yeah, and they say, yeah, you can. Great. Now you know you don't have to respond to it in a way that, are you asking me to fix this or asking me to do something? You eliminate that uncertainty in the conversation that tends to make things worse, not better.
Now, what do we do if we're not able to set that frame? And by what I mean by that is someone else has an issue with you and they just come in hot attacking you and they're throwing insults and they're almost being mean in a way. How do we not let our emotions get the best of us? How do we handle those insults and almost those shots at us without before we can even get the chance to set the frame like you just talked about?
If it is a superheated argument where somebody's just throwing stuff at you before you can even, get a word out, I typically respond with silence, because if they're doing that at that time, then it's more important that they get it out than I say something. So I just let them get it all out. Just let it get all out. Because at that point, it's really just an emotional word vomit. They just, boom, they have to get this out right away. That indicates to me that there's been things that they've been thinking in their head long before they started talking to me. Because we really don't just rise that quickly. It's a slow boil that typically then pops off. So when that happens, I just respond with silence. Now, at that point in time, you can say, you can ask them, where is this coming from, if you need further clarification? Or is it the time that you immediately set up a boundary of your own, like a personal boundary? And that's pretty important to have, especially if you feel like you're afraid, or maybe you feel like you need to walk around on eggshells. I'm much more of the mindset of, now I'm going to let you know right away, I'm not going to be spoken to like that. And if you continue to speak to me like that, this is the end of the conversation right here. And then full stop. And then you wait to see what they say. If I'm going to say, let's say somebody spouts off beginning of an argument, I have no idea where this is coming from, and they're just hot and heavy yelling at me. Most people will be tempted to rise to the same volume. Let me start yelling at you. I don't know what are we yelling about? What are we arguing about? You know what I mean? Like, all you know is your nervous system is pumping and saying, you got to yell. I find that a much more assertive approach is to, number one, say, I will not be spoken to that way, whatever my boundary is. And let's say if they're yelling, I would say, I will not be yelled at. And if you're going to continue to yell at me, then this is the end of the conversation right here. Full stop. Now it's in their box, and what they're going to do is lower their voice, or they're not. You know, that's how you need to go. But whatever that is, when you communicate that boundary, your voice needs to be low and slow. Helps keep them from, continuing to boil up.
I feel like that silence is very powerful, because I feel like what most people do when they get attacked like that is they just go instantly back at them, and they instantly yell back at them and say what they're doing wrong. But the reality is that that person that's going after you just probably wants to be heard.
Well, they either want to be heard they certainly want to be heard, but most often they're scared. Excuse me. When somebody has an emotional outburst like that, it's like biologically, it's because they have tension, they have stress in their system. Their nervous system sympathetic nervous system has them on full mode. And so they need to yell to release that tension, or they need to cry to release that tension. So it's telling you that something has happened within their system that is saying, I'm not right. Something's off, emotionally charged. And if you see it like that, rather than them attacking you, rather than becoming defensive, it leads to more questions by you of, where is this coming from? More thoughts of, okay, I'm being objective here. Let me detach myself and say, what's going on with this person? Rather than taking it immediately so personal that I need to just act like it is all because of me as to what has caused this right here. And maybe it has been, but even so, that silence they're able to put into the conversation also allows them to hear their voice back. So if somebody were to say something really ugly, if you and I are in an argument and I say something really nasty to you, what means more? You responding with something equally nasty back to me or more? Or if you just give me silence? And then all of a sudden I hear my words back and I'm going, oh man, that sounded bad. Just objectively, that was not good. And now that has said way more than anything that you could have possibly said to me.
And a lot of times they rehearse it in their head over and over again before they meet with you. Mm-hmm. And we tend to do the same too. And when we have something to bring up with someone, a lot of times I find with myself is that, like, you kind of repeat this conversation over and over in your head. And then it's a conversation that might not even happen. I know I saw you on Dr. John Deloney's show, and cool. He was one of my first guests on my podcast. And that's something that he mentioned, is that a lot of the times, like, we have these imaginary conversations that in our head that we never have. And then by the time it's actually time to talk to that person, it goes completely different, right?
Yeah. It's often you think to yourself, this is going way different than I imagined. You have these... We like to have these imaginary arguments and conversations in the car where we always win. We're always the victor. We're always the righteous one. And when you get into the conversation and you realize life is not that way, and that this other person across from you has real feelings and emotions and they're not imaginary, you start to second guess start to think this is not how I wanted it to go. Nothing is right about this. So yeah, that's a real thing. And if you're not careful, it can really put you in a bad spot.
A lot of times I find too is that when you actually go to that point where you bring it up to that person, a lot of times I find is that they just respond and they give a response to it, and you're like, oh, wait a second, like they're kind of right here. And maybe I was in the wrong and I was just kind of making this all up in my head when they give like a very logical response back that you're like, oh, wait a second. Okay.